Every time I drive up South 9th and round the bend past the cemetery, I always look over to my right, expecting to see a bit of our past.
There's a time in each year that we always hold dear, good old summertime.
William Dallas DeWeese had built his beautiful lodge on the eastern edge of Lake Lincoln as the century ended and the new one began. He and his wife would move into the home in the summer of 1900. The 13-room lodge cost him $8,000 to build, and the local paper called it the summer cottage of Lake Lincoln. DeWeese called it his shack. Dallas DeWeese was better known as Dal DeWeese, didn't come to Canyon from Dallas or even Texas. He came from Ohio. He would bring his family's knowledge of horticulture and establish a tree nursery here. He formed the Rocky Mountain Nurseries and would supply nearly 2 million choice fruit trees, vines, and plants to local and regional growers throughout the Rocky Mountain region.
But he also just was very involved in the community. He's part of the reason we have the Blossom Festival today. He and his wife started the Blossom Fete, and so they designed that to be a time when all the trees were blooming, that people would come down and see them. They would do all these events and everything, and that turned eventually into the Blossom and Music Festival.
DeWeese would partner with local friend Charles Dye, and the two would build the DeWeese Dye Ditch Company to carry water from the Grape Creek area to his growing operation. They would turn 1,200 arid acres on the plateau above the Arkansas River into acres and acres of fruit trees. The DeWeese Shack, or as most of us know it, the DeWeese Lodge, was quickly surrounded by the fruits of his labor. By 1902, DeWeese realized the hot, arid climate of Fremont County was perfect for growing fruit, but he would need a lot more water if he wanted to keep the trees alive through the hot summer months and into early fall. He begged, borrowed, and leveraged everything he had to build the DeWeese Dam and Reservoir on Grape Creek in nearby Custer County to help his fruit survive to harvest. DeWeese was also an avid hunter. His shack would display some of his world record trophies he had hunted in Colorado and Alaska and other places. Before the turn of the century, DeWeese came to the hard reality that his passion for hunting was unsustainable. His last trip to Alaska in 1905, he saw a massive depletion in the big game population there due to the influx of miners and settlers to the state. He would then focus his efforts in establishing hunting laws to help maintain herds and the establishment of game preserves to protect areas for future generations of hunters and naturalists. Future President Teddy Roosevelt was rumored to be a friend of DeWeese, and it was said he even stayed at his lodge during one of his visits through the area before he was president. However, there are no pictures or first-hand accounts the two ever met. Dal DeWeese would live out his days at the shack on the banks of Lake Lincoln. He passed at the age of 71 in 1928. His lodge would be sold in 1930. It would change hands numerous times over the next 75 years. Dwayne Renfro, his sister Ivana, and parents Rufus and Essie lived in the lodge in the early 40s. It was vacant for several years in the late 50s and early 60s. It briefly reopened as a bed and breakfast in 1996 before becoming a campus for boys in the late 90s for a couple years. The old lodge was starting to show its age. It had been damaged a little bit in a couple of small fires over the years, but it looked like new owners in late 2006 might bring it back to life. That is until a cold winter's morning in January of 2007.
And it seemed like it was even at or below zero.
Joel Foster was the incident commander for the Canyon City Fire Department that afternoon.
And the first in engine got stuck in the driveway, so that blocked our access for the second in trucks, and it was fully involved when we got there, so wasn't a lot we could do.
Fire would rage through the remaining hours of the short winter's day. It would be dark by the time the flames were out. The department would have to return again at 1 in the morning to hit hot spots that would continue to flare into the rubble. The devastation was evident the next morning. The shack, the summer cottage by Lake Lincoln, the DeWeese Lodge was gone. Dal DeWeese had donated much of his collection to the new, now old, City Hall when it was built on River Street in 1928. The museum on the top floor was open just 5 months before DeWeese died. You can still visit it today. A fireplace showcases DeWeese interests in paleontology, and you can take a look at a lot of his trophies there as well. Donations are always welcome. If you took a trip through Lincoln Park in 1938, you could see the acres and acres of fruit trees that Dal DeWeese helped establish. Today, much of the land has been developed. A few small orchards still remain, and a few hayfields dot the landscape. A new home now sits where the shack, DeWeese's Lodge, once stood. That's another edition of Throwback Thursday. Thanks to Kathleen Eaton of the Royal Gorge Museum and Regional History Center, Joel Foster of the Canyon City Fire Protection District, and Dwayne Renfro for keeping the memories alive. I'm Chris Jenkins.